Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about my entire life and my weight loss journey. So, starting off as a kid, I was pretty much overweight and I was a fat kid. I wasn't your cliche fat kid though, like I did want to participate in sports, although I wasn't good at them. I remember my dad telling me about how like I used to do athletics and like seeing me like run the 100 meter. It would he said he used to like try not to laugh when like as all the other kids like going in front of me, and like I don't take it. I think I would laugh at myself like watching all these other kids overtake me. But anyway, up until 14, I got my tonsils out and my adenoids out, and when I stepped on the scales, it was like one of those like super accurate scales, and the weight came up as 85 kilograms, which is really overweight for a 14-year-old. Like the average 14-year-old weighs around 50 to 55 kilograms, so I was 30 kilograms over. And I was pretty embarrassed since the doctor and my mom were like looking at my weight, and they were like kind of speechless. Like when someone doesn't have a reaction, typically it's not good. So anyway, I spend a week at home because I couldn't speak because I had my tonsils out. But when I come back to school, we had, ironically, the athletics carnival coming up, which was in September. And one of the events was the 3 kilometer run, which typically happens before the event happens because it's the longest, I guess, thing that you have to do. And so each year level basically goes through, and each day they'll do the 3 kilometer run. It came our year level to do it, and basically we start off, and me and my friend basically we're running together. And basically how the whole thing went is we'd run 50 meters and then walk the rest because I was so unfit. And we come to the end, and we're basically at the 100 meter sprint, and we're both like, yeah, let's go it, let's race each other to the end. And since he's obviously more athletically gifted, he ended up obviously beating me. And I ended up crossing the finish line, huffing and puffing. And the teacher then said, all right, let's round up, do a roll call, and go back to class. And it was like this thunderbolt hit my body, and I was in shock at the realization that I was the last person to finish out of our whole year level. And I couldn't believe it. Like I was looking behind my like shoulder just to check that there's not like one person. Like I would rather be the second last than the last person. And there wasn't. They were all waiting on me. And I had a moment to myself where, I wasn't angry, I wasn't sad, I was contempt. I said to myself, something needs to change, in order for you to get better. Because I was a self-aware fat kid. Like I knew I was fat and I knew I wanted to lose weight. And so I'd go on these like diets where it's like, oh, I'm going to eat all the junk food and fast food I like in one day. That way, when I give it up, I'll enjoy it. And you try all these like different like tactics, and you watch all these different ads on like the TV and stuff, and it's just all like a load of crap. But I had this one brief moment, like a discussion with myself, where I kind of, sat down and I like, had a hand on my own shoulder, and I said like, it's okay. We're gonna lose some weight. And so I went home and I made a pledge that, from that point forward, I'm gonna run in the morning and in the afternoon. I'm gonna cut out all sugar. And so I stopped, I stopped drinking juice. I stopped eating ice cream, chocolate. Chocolate was a big one. Tim Tams, oh God. Tim Tams in the fridge, Didn't exist. It was like it's like a mouse, and there's like it's like a mouse and a cat living together. Like there's only one thing that's gonna happen, and so I cut that all out. And my diet was basically cereals. Like I think I was a Wheat Bix kid. I'm pretty certain. I don't know. I haven't had cereal in years. Like I'm a full like I'll just have pre I'll just have like a pre workout. No. Um Meal prep. Sorry, brain fart. I'll just have meal prep for like breakfast. Just pasta, veggies and meat. That's my breakfast. Um but my diet was basically just like a sandwich, a nut bar, fruit, and then whatever's for dinner, whatever mum made. But anyway, I started running and it sucked. I'd run 50 meters and then I have to walk, and basically that's the cycle. And then on day 2 or 3, I remember getting a stitch on my like right side, and immediately my mind's like, see, your body doesn't even want to lose weight. It's hurting. It doesn't want to lose weight. So why should you even try? And I had to fight those like thoughts where I was like, come on, give us a chance. It's day 3. Let's keep going. And so I Googled, what's causing these pains in my body? What's causing a stitch? And I Googled it, and one of the main reasons is because your ab strength or your core strength isn't all there. Because when you're running, all your organs are like, mixing around, whatever. And so I downloaded an ab app, an ab workout app. Yeah, shit. Anyway, and it basically gives you this ab workout. So, day 1 you do, 8 sit-ups, 8 leg raises, 12 crunches, and a 30-second plank. And the app was fantastic because this was the era kind of before like ads were in apps. Like it was great, and it was before like freemium crap. Like you wouldn't download like a fitness service and then use it once and then it pop up like, oh, if you want to use it again, you have to like have our yearly subscription. It was great. I used it, I think, for the entire period. So I started my weight loss journey in September, and then we had the summer holidays through Christmas, and then January, when I'm coming back to school, I walk in weighing at 53 kilograms from 85. And, I had, friends, I had, chicks look at me and go, is that Zane? And it's nuts. And I even had teachers come up to me and say, are you eating? And, and yeah, it's nuts. 3 months. So September through to like January. Actually, that might have been 4 months. Sorry, 4 months. And I lost 30 kilograms. And it was nuts. And it was great because the swimming carnival was the first thing in the year, and so I could show off my brand new abs, and like the chicks were like, oh, Zane has abs, and it was amazing. Like it was such a great year because I was actually getting like recognition from chicks, and I was like getting like girlfriends and stuff. And then eventually through the year we had the athletics carnival, and we had the dreaded 3-kilometer run. And it was weird because before that I could run for 2 hours straight just for the sake of it. Like I had this unreal like endurance, and I was nervous. I was nervous about this race, not because like I had any competitors, but mainly because I felt like if I didn't achieve something in this race, then it was all for nothing. Everything I've worked so hard for over the course of that year meant nothing. And so I run the race, and I end up with a time of 16 minutes, and I come first. By a couple laps, I'm first place, and I stood exactly where I stood, a year prior, and I was just so proud of myself. It was just unreal, and I'm actually quite grateful for, that experience now, that in just like 1 year, just so much can change from like dead last out of like, 90, 100 students to now you're the top, you're number one. And it was just amazing. And I don't think I'll like ever forget that moment, because I honestly, it was probably the proudest moment I've ever had in my like whole life. Was just a simple 3K run. But anyway, fast forward, 1st of January 2020, we got post New Year's party, and I get pulled over by a cop, and I get drug tested and come up positive. So anyway, the consequences of that is I got a 3-month suspension of my provisional driver's license. And do you want to guess what happened? There's a few options. Basically, you would think the rational mind would be like, okay, I messed up. I should go straight edge. I should stop the drugs, stop the drinking, stop the partying, and I was still in grade 12 at the time, starting grade 12 at the time. And I should just, focus on my grades, focus on my relationships, and just try to be a good person. Instead, I figured since I didn't have a driver's license anymore, I could do all the drinking, the drugs, and the partying I wanted, since I didn't have to drive anywhere. I didn't have any risk of getting pulled over and getting alcohol tested or drug tested. It's just like, yeah, man. Now this is what I do. So over the course of 3 months, that's what happened. And the main thing that I did was hooch, pretty much. And obviously when you smoke hooch, you get the munchies and you just eat. And basically every night I'm raiding the pantry. The pantry didn't stand a chance. Not at all. Like, I remember one time, I'll go on a little tangent. I was working at McDonald's, and when you work there, sometimes you make burgers, and for some reason they don't get sent out. It's an odd coincidence that happens, because you make all the burgers that are on the friggin' screen, but some of them just don't go out. So typically what happens is they get thrown in like this basket, and it's a waste basket, and someone at the end of the shift writes down all the waste. But instead what I did was I put all these burgers in my bag, and I think I had about like 10 burgers. Like, I think I had a bacon Angus, 2 Big Macs, 2 quarter pounders, 2 cheeseburgers, so what am I at? 7, a hamburger, and then I can't remember the other 2, but I had 10 burgers. I went home, had some hooch, and I just ate the burgers. And I remember waking up at around like 4 a.m. and I have like half like like the Angus burger, like, on my like on my like shoulder, like, oh, hello there, and like I could just eat it when I woke up. But anyway, 2 months prior to, 2 months prior from getting my license back, my brain made 2 choices, right? Choice 1, you can clean up, stop the drugs, stop the drinking, 2 weeks from now, it should be all out of your system, and get your license back. Option 2 is don't get your license, keep partying, keep doing the drugs, and see where life takes you. Obviously, I took option 1 and got my license back, and basically did my bread and butter of like do an ab workout, go for a run, and then go for a run in the afternoon, and eating healthier. So yeah, that ended up, pretty solid. I did end up with good grades by the end of grade 12. And in case you're wondering how I was able to do all the partying and drugs, even though I was like in grade 12, I was living by myself at the age of 17, and I was kind of like unrestricted. So that's basically the answer. Anyway, moving on. When I was 19, after a breakup with my girlfriend, obviously I got I got chubby or fat or whatever you want to say. When you're in a relationship, you kind of, I stopped trying to like look good and like be healthy. But after the breakup, I had this void in my heart or in my body, and I just wanted to fill it. And so I was thinking I should, go out clubbing, go out partying, and just get these hookups to kind of, fill that void of a missing person. But when I felt that way, I had this voice inside my head say, is that really the solution? And I said no. And so I then figured that the only solution was to improve myself, to, become a better version of myself, not to make my ex, not to make her feel jealous or anything or feel like she's missing out on anything, but for the next partner in my life and also for myself. And I then joined the gym, and then 6 months later, I go from this 85 kilogram, chubby, average looking, like 19-year-old to like looking pretty fit. And then that's when the bulking started, and I basically went from like 90 kilograms to 100 to 110 to then 115. 115, I stuck there. I stuck at 115 kilograms, and then I went to 120. When I was at 120, I was there, and I was just holding it. I was trying to figure if I should go heavier or lighter or whatever. But at the time, I was working as a disability support worker, and unfortunately, on shift, one of my clients passed away, and I tried to save his life, and he still passed away. And basically, that whole experience just carried a lot of like guilt that I held with it. And the way I dealt with that guilt was just binge eating and, watching TV shows and just being lazy and just losing control of myself and just eating all this junk food. And then 3 months later, November 2023, I think. Yeah. I upload a video to Instagram and it just goes viral. I weigh like 131 kilograms and I'm like pretty fat. But now like nearly a year and a half later, I've gained like 15 more kilograms, so I weigh like 147 now. So I've gained more weight, and it's not because of the guilt. Now it's more just like the binge eating and the eating of junk food and all that crap. It's a coping mechanism, and it like there's like triggers of like when I'm depressed or I'm sad, when I'm lonely, blah blah blah, when I'm bored, when I'm doing nothing. It's just like, oh, why don't you just order like a family meal from McDonald's or a bucket from KFC and eat that? And it's easy for me as well to do that, especially like at nighttime. If nighttime when I have like no one to talk to, no one to, yeah. But now what I'm doing to like help me live a healthier and happier lifestyle, for starters, I got an alarm set, and I'm going on walks every morning, and then in the afternoon I'm going to the gym and I'm lifting weights and I'm taking supplements and I'm having this meal prep, and basically it's just pasta, veggies, and chicken. I'm kind of off rice. Like frozen rice just tastes terrible. I'm off rice for a while. I want something different. But yeah, I would like to get down to like 100 kilograms. Like I always knew when I passed like 100 kilograms, I was like, I wanted to stay at that level, but I might drop down to like 90, say if I wanted to get into like an Ironman tournament, which is basically, it's like a triathlon, but like just harder. Um, but yeah, that's basically where we're at the moment. But yeah, anyway, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment if you have any weight loss tips, or you've gone through like a weight loss journey of your own, and let us know if you're proud of yourselves. And yeah, thanks for watching.